Hi everyone. So this month's training looks at how we can support horses that are anxious, long-term anxiety. My name is Nikki Ross and I am an equine behaviourist and I work here in the Highlands of Scotland. So I run courses for owners and professionals and carers, anyone who'll listen really, and hope to improve their understanding of the horse's behaviour so that we can have a better relationship and give them the best life possible. We have courses up here in the Highlands, and we also have the Horseplay at Home Learning Hub, which you can access online. Okay, so anxiety. Now, anxiety is different from stress. So your horse may feel a level of stress from a certain trigger. So say they're afraid of traffic or umbrellas or things like that can be addressed through training, through positive training that helps them decrease stress levels. Anxiety is defined as an excessive and persistent feeling of worry or apprehension that doesn't go away, even when there's no obvious threat, and it can have both physical and psychological symptoms. So a horse who is feeling anxious may be very close to their flight Fs, 4Fs behaviours a lot of the time. So your 4Fs are fight, flight, fiddle about, freeze. Fight can be anything like bite and kick, but it can also be pinning their ears back, pointing their nose towards you, asking you to step out of their space. That can be a fight behaviour, or beginning of a fight behaviour. Flight can be bolting. It can not be not being caught in the field. It could be walking away from you as you go to approach if they're loose at other times. Fiddle about can be this dancing on the spot that we see when horses seem to get excited or over rises, dancing on the spot. But it can also be things like playing with the lead rope obsessively or fiddling with the bolt on a door. Now, there are also other reasons for those behaviours, but the extension from a fiddle about response is one of them. And then freeze. This can show itself by planting their feet, refusing to go forward. It can show itself through standing and staring into the distance, so just stopping the training session and staring into the distance. These are all freeze responses. Okay, so what causes anxiety? What causes this long-term, persistent feeling of worry and apprehension in a horse? Well, there can be quite a few reasons. A few of them are their ethological needs not being met, so management changes would be to in place. It could be that aversive training methods are used and the horse worries about these training methods being used, pressure, pain, whatever that might be. It could be caused by broken attachments, both early weaning or abrupt weaning, and we're seeing generally in free living horses that youngsters are around 2 before they start to leave their nursery herds and go off and do other things. And with fillies, sometimes they never leave nursery herd. So if we're looking at 4 or 6 months weaning, anything less than a year, that's early weaning. Okay. Not always easy to tell what's happened with your horse, but that's worth bearing in mind. Other attachment breaks might be if they've been with a pair bond for a long time. So if allowed, horses will pair bond for life. They've been with that horse for a long time and then they're taken apart and separated. If they've been with other horses that they've formed a close relationship to and taken apart. That break in attachment, especially if you add it on to abrupt or early weaning, you get a very sensitized horse to separation. This is when we see lots of separation anxiety, horses not wanting to go out on their own because it's a very deep-seated brain change that's happened there. We're going to talk about that a little bit more in a moment. The other possibility is genetics as well. Some horses are anxious by nature, but that doesn't mean that they have to be anxious all the time. There are things that we can do to help them. So to work out how we can help a particular horse, firstly, we need to find out why. So is it something that we can address quickly, like management, like training methods? We can explain the effectiveness of these by looking at what's going on at a chemical level within the body. So increased cortisol levels, increased stress hormone levels in the body can cause an increase in anxiety. So if we decrease the cortisol, then we get a horse that's less anxious. How do we do that? Well, we do that by making sure that their needs are fulfilled. This means friends, forage, freedom, 24-hour access to friends, forage, freedom as a baseline. That's your bare minimum. And I know this goes against conventional, what we're told conventionally, and I know it's very challenging if you're in a yard situation, but knowing what the best thing to do is get as close to that as you absolutely possibly can. There are things that you can do to simulate that a little bit if you've got absolutely no way of achieving it. And again, in the course, we go into a lot of details about how you can do that. But that is your aim. Friends, forage, freedom, 24/7. On top of that, they should also have agency. So this is choice, control, and challenge within their environment. And again, this is something we go into a lot more detail on the course in the Horseplay at Home Learning Hub. We can have a look at our training. Are we using training that triggers flight responses? So are we chasing them away in any way? Are we asking them, are we putting them under increased pressure? So is that the pressure that we're using getting stronger and stronger and stronger until they respond? That can cause anxiety if it's something that's happening a lot. Looking into more horse-led training techniques, positive reinforcement, these things all help to activate the opposite of cortisol in a way, which is dopamine. So dopamine in the system, you have high levels of dopamine, you have low levels of cortisol, like a seesaw or a scales. Then we're going to increase dopamine, we're going to decrease cortisol, and we're going to see those anxiety levels drop. It's going to happen. Now, without decreasing the cortisol in your horse's body, they are not going to become more relaxed. I don't know what's going on with my hair there. They're going to stay stressed. You have to address the cortisol levels in their body if you want to have a less anxious horse. It's not going to happen by putting them under more and more pressure, forcing them into situations, showing them who's boss, making them deal with situations that increase the anxiety, because all that's going to do is put them into conditioned suppression, put them into shutdown. And then you're going to have higher vet's bills because your horse's immune system is going to go down. He's going to be suppressing all that anxiety and worry. It's not gone away. It's still there. It's going to explode somewhere else. Or it's going to come out in health issues. That is not the answer to an anxious horse. Addressing the anxiety is the answer. So decrease that cortisol, increase the dopamine. You have got to do that first before you do anything else. Before any training happens, that balance needs to be much, much better. Okay, however, what if you have a horse that you've done all that? They have this most amazing life. They have a brilliant amount of space. They have a stable herd. You're using positive reinforcement. Everything's ticked, but they're still highly anxious. Well, the reasons for this could go back to those ideas of broken attachments and genetics as well. Among other things. Again, this is a big subject. So if you have a horse who's always anxious and yet you've got the chemical balance you feel in the brain, well, this could be more to do with the structure of their brain. So brain pathways are created in two main ways. One is through repetition. Practice makes perfect. The other is through sudden learning of something that would dramatically affect their survival. So a sudden event like an attachment, like being taken away from your mum too early or too suddenly, that is a direct threat to survival. So the brain pathway formed around that attachment separation is going to be very strong immediately. That's not something that needs to be practiced. You don't need to practice nearly dying in order for the brain to learn that. That's strong. And then that pathway, they can then be triggered again and again and again. So say that foal is separated from its mother, it's put to live with another horse, and then a few years later, they're separated again because the foal's sold or the other horse is sold and they're put together again. This can go on many, many times. And most of our horses have had that split separation again and again and again in their lives at some point. So that's a very sensitized pathway within the brain. And that can then have an effect on other pathways within the brain as well. It kind of bleeds into other areas. So you suddenly find a horse that can be triggered quite easily into these big anxiety responses from what seems like nothing. So with these horses, we need to stop triggering. We need to stop practicing that pathway, okay? Because the more it's practiced, the stronger it becomes. It will never go away. We need to not walk down that path so that it starts to grass over and disappear, or as much as possible. Now, if we constantly take our horse out of their comfort zone into places where these anxiety behaviors are showing, we're practicing anxiety. Those pathways are never going to go away. So instead, what we do is we find where their comfort zone is, we step to the edge of it, and we work on triggering dopamine at those edges. Decrease the cortisol, increase the dopamine at the edge of the comfort zone. And then we stretch the comfort zone. Now, in order to do this, we need certain skills. We need to be able to recognize where that comfort zone is. We need to understand how to increase dopamine release in our horses. And we need to be able to read them super well, completely understand what they're saying. If you're interested in learning more about any of the areas we've talked about today, then the Horseplay at Home Learning Hub may well be for you. The Learning Hub is an evergreen course, so it's once you have access to it, you have access to it all the time. You can go through it in your own pace. You have direct support from myself through the Facebook groups, through the Q&A sessions, through regular retraining. The hub is constantly updated with when we have new research come out. I update the course as well and make sure that's in there. I'm also finding that as members join, certain key issues keep coming up, and if they're not in the course, I put them in there. So it really is a big bank of information for you to keep coming back to. There are observation activities within there. There's a field guide and journal in there. So it helps you evaluate your horse from the beginning, evaluate where they're up to, have the information to implement the changes, and then move forward, take them to the next level of relationship, the next level of calmness, connection, bravery. If that's something you're interested in, just click the link in the description and it will take you to a little questionnaire that'll gives me an idea if the course would work for you. And then we can have a little chat and I can take you through the details of what every module includes and go from there. Okay, let me know in the comments if that's helpful or if you need any more help with anything, and I'll see you guys soon.